Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Yeah. Drinking water. Hey. Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched Crimson Tide.
Crimson Tide.
You know, not much crimson in this tide. I gotta say.
No, you see, Dave, it is, it's a playful little reference both to, I think the University of Alabama. They mention it in the movie where they say "Roll Tide," because it's called the Tide, and the submarine in this movie is called the USS Alabama, and then also you see Crimson Tide because the Ruskies, Dave.
Oh,
so there's layers to it. There's layers to it.
Perfect title.
Those sailors out there are just boys. Boys who are training to do a terrible and unthinkable thing. And if that ever occurs, the only reassurance they'll have that they're doing the proper thing is going to derive from their unqualified belief in the unified chain of command. That means we don't question each other's motives in front of the crew. It means we don't undermine each other. It means they hear your voice right after mine without hesitation.
So this is brought to you all by Vincent. This is a Patreon produced. We just watched episode, which I feel like people already know because it's Crimson Tide, which didn't just come out.
It's not a recent film, but thank you so much, Vincent.
No. Thank you, Vincent. Yes. I as I commented to Tom before we started, I think I've seen this before, but it's been so long that I might as well have not seen it. Because in my head, I was like, yeah, I know Crimson Tide. And then watching it, I was like, Vigo is here?
Yeah.
James Gandolfini?
Steve Zahn?
Yeah, was that Ryan Phillippe in one shot?
Maybe. There is a guy who looks very Phillippe-esque.
Yeah. This movie, I rented it. It has big Freon Stars energy, and I was surprised that I had to rent it. Not to say that I wasn't
it's a
fine renting.
You see, it's a Hollywood Pictures film, so technically it should be on Disney Plus.
Oh yeah, this
if
should be on
ever a
Disney
movie
Plus.
belonged on Disney Plus,
Yeah.
it was 1995's Crimson Tide.
Yeah. So this is submarine political thriller. Gene Hackman versus Denzel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. Super Troopers is the Russian leader, too. What's his name?
Oh,
the guy who plays the evil...
Daniel von Bargen. He's also George Costanza's boss.
He is.
For a couple of... Yes, that was Ryan Phillippe. I just looked it up.
Nice. Yeah, this movie has everybody. Was that Fabrizio?
Yeah, Fabrizio's a huge role. This is like right around this time.
Is he also in The Rock?
He is also in The Rock, yeah. Which has a similar direction, even though Crimson Tide is directed by Tony Scott, obviously. The Rock is directed by Michael Bay. But they both have a Hans Zimmer score that is almost identical.
Yep.
Like Hans Zimmer's like military / being at sea score is the same music. So the score for like this movie, The Rock, a little bit of Con Air, and all the Pirates movies sound exactly the fucking same.
Yeah,
it's
Hans
incredible.
He's just shitting those out.
It's incredible.
Yeah,
how identical the scores to all these films are.
I like Hans Zimmer, but he does feel very lazy to me sometimes.
A lot of the times, yeah. His Batman score was pretty sweet.
Oh yeah, it was great.
But that's not him. That's Giacchino. I was thinking of Dune. His Dune score was pretty sweet.
Oh, that's also good. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Apologies to Michael Giacchino, who did an excellent score for the Batman.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, this is mid-90s. We're post-Cold War, but so we're still like, there were a lot of movies that came out around this time about the end of the Cold War and about the generation of military dudes that are sort of twisting in the wind after it's done. You know what I mean?
Right. There's always this, I feel like it's any war where they do the like guys who are, their mindset is still very much in the war.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, 100%. And that's like what this movie is about. Like Gene Hackman is the captain. He's very old school, follow your orders, kill them all till they're dead. And Denzel is like the new generation of soldier who they have a scene.
The woke army.
A little bit, but like it's like the two philosophies of warfare, basically. Where it's like follow orders no matter what. And then Denzel comes from the philosophy of, you know, you need to question. It's important to question orders and be certain because the orders aren't everything. Like there's real world consequences, particularly when nukes are involved. Like you can't just blindly follow orders because it could lead to the death of the planet.
I just love that the woke army stuff more or less exists in the 90s. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, of course, it's always, anytime anything is slightly different or progressive, people bitched about it. So yeah, it's like, it's Denzel is just like, perhaps maybe we shouldn't blindly nuke a country.
Yeah.
And they're like, don't give me that PC crap.
It's really funny that like, I mean, their conflict still holds up, I think.
Oh, for sure.
But the idea that Denzel is like this radical new presence is what's kind of quaint 25 years later, where it's like, oh, he's just being a pretty conservative military guy. He's just being intelligent about it, you know?
Yeah.
Like he's not that radical of a figure.
Right. So this is like, it's dad porn at its best.
Oh, hell
right?
yes. Hell yes.
Like,
are you kidding me? With growing up with Navy parents, I saw this movie a bunch when it came out. I hadn't seen it since though. So it had been a quarter of a century probably since I watched this film last.
Right. It's got everything. It's got the male drama.
Yeah,
like
it's got dudes getting locked in a section of the submarine and drowning, which is a requisite for any submarine film. You have to have that scene where they have to make the decision to trap a bunch of men in an area of the submarine and drown in order to save the whole ship.
Oh,
it's in every submarine
film has to have that one point.
They have to have it.
Yeah. But it's dad point in the, like, I think military stuff works really well for this because it's a chance for like dudes to be dramatic, right? Mm-hmm. And to scream at each other, and to be passive aggressive and all these power dynamics and shit. It's just
It's delicious.
Eat it right up.
Yeah.
And it's in this weird twilight between like war is bad, but also it feels still kind of like American propaganda. You know, it's got that Jack Ryan feel.
Oh, it's extremely. Yeah, there's a lot of that in this for sure.
Yeah, it's always like we're not questioning the system.
No,
it's just this one guy who spoilers at the end. It's like we're gonna early retirement for almost killing the planet.
The ending of this movie is such a fucking cop out for the theme of the film and for like the question that it presents.
Right,
like for most of the movie.
Idea.
Yeah, real quick, just for most of the movie, I was like. Genuinely surprised at how like, oh, this movie's actually a lot more thoughtful than I remembered. It's representing these two ways to view this conflict pretty well, and it seems to make a pretty clear judgment on the side of Denzel, on the side of being intelligent, on the side of questioning where your orders are coming from and what their intent is. But at the end of the movie, they're just like, you're both right and you're both wrong. It was very much good people on both sides.
Yes. And then they're like, that's Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman literally, he is the one who commits mutiny in the movie. And he's
the one who says, I was wrong at the end, too.
And he holds two of his crew members at gunpoint and threatens to blow their heads off unless they subvert military regulations and put him back in charge as the captain and let him shoot his nukes. Like, he has done criminal things more than just... screw up regulation. He has committed crimes. He's
hijacked a submarine to nuke Russia, and they're like, there's good people on both sides. It is very funny how that is, because it's like this idea that like it's like pro rules, like in this weird way where they're like, yeah, I mean technically you sort of bent a rule there, Denzel, so you should have nuked everyone. Like you're both right. It's just yeah. I'm glad that at the end they say like, by the way, since 1990 whatever, the military has changed its policy and like the president is the only person who could launch nukes or whatever. Like I appreciate they like put that up there of like, this is fiction and it would never happen, just for the record. This can't happen.
It used to be the case,
right?
Where they mention it briefly in the movie. Denzel brings up redundancy, but they did have patrolling, during the Cold War. At least I'm
for sure,
almost positive this is correct. I might be wrong, but yeah, they would have.
This movie isn't correct. I mean, it's not based off a true story.
Oh no! This didn't actually happen.
It's like the ending is them basically saying like, this can't happen. Like
right,
we've changed since.
Yeah, there is a very famous story of this almost happening with a Russian sub-commander.
Yeah. I heard it was more realistic, which is the sub-commander saw the false positive of nukes and was like, I better call this in.
The real life guy was Denzel, basically.
Yeah.
He was like, I should verify this before I launch nukes.
Yeah. And then he did that, and they were like, "Yeah, don't do that."
Oh yeah, I'm glad you called. Like, glad you called to verify because we super don't want you to launch nukes.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the thing. All right, so I don't actually think this movie is realistic from everything I've learned about. I guess maybe I'm being naive, but one thing I do know about subs, and I don't know much, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
They go
much.
underwater. That's one thing I know about
is that
subs.
They go underwater.
Yeah.
No, I read that subs are actually like psychologically speaking the easiest on people, like to be on a sub. So you'd never have someone like Gene Hackman on a sub, because you're basically begging for the Shining situation in a sub. Where it's like, let's put a bunch of guys in a metal tube, put them underwater, and they won't get to see the sun for months. Also, I'm going to be a real hard ass on them. And it's like, no, you're not. You're absolutely not. Maybe that's something that's changed over the years, but they learned that's like, yeah, if there was any risk of suicide in any department of the Army, subs are the highest because it's just a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
It's the Navy, Dave. It's the Navy.
What did I say?
You said Army.
Whatever, man. Look, what did I say? I don't know much about subs.
Yeah.
All I know is that I that's what I've heard, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm totally wrong. It just seems unrealistic to have Gene Hackman feels like an unrealistic monster, which isn't really a criticism of this film because I love this film.
Yeah, it's a great film.
Yeah.
This is peak mid-90s war propaganda, but with a tiny bit of a conscience, political thriller.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
No notes. I mean,
it's actually, it really is a pretty good movie, honestly.
Well, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's the sort of thing where, again, peak, like maximum drama, where it's, so we haven't even explained what the movie is. Denzel is friends with Viggo. Their kids know each other.
Interesting that's where you start.
Yeah, well, that is important.
Denzel is friends with Viggo.
Yeah, there's this magician, Tom. There's a magician, you see.
All right. I've got things to do today, Dave. So in the interest of time, what happens is there's a incident where a pro-Soviet general played by Daniel von Bargen seizes control of a Russian military base on the coast that also has a submarine depot and some of their missiles. So he has access to both submarines and some nukes. And he's like, if anybody tries to come in here, breach our perimeter, and fight my rebellion, I'm going to launch these nukes. So Gene Hackman's submarine has to get sent over there to be able to respond in case there is a nuclear threat. Denzel gets added to the crew as the XO because Gene Hackman's normal XO comes down with appendicitis. So he's an unfamiliar new presence on Gene Hackman's crew. Tensions are high because they have different philosophies about being in command, basically. And about following orders,
Yeah.
like we were saying.
As Denzel puts it, in the age of nukes, war is the enemy.
Right.
Yeah. And he's not wrong.
No, he's 100% correct.
Yeah, and so it's this weird, like, yeah, he's a hippie guy. He's like a hippie submarine guy. And Gene Hackman, he's the old school. He's actually seen shit, not like this fucking this educated type of this smart guy coming in. And so that's the essential. I bring up Vigo because Vigo is also on the sub, and I think there's an element of this about like people turning into animals almost while they're on the sub. Like there's this idea that before and after we see it, it's like civilization, it's society. They're back in. Gene Hackman even says it, like we're here to preserve democracy, not practice it. And so, like, I feel like there's very much this element of, like, when they're on the sub, it's like they're animals, suddenly.
To a degree, I guess, and I think that's part of what the movie is saying about how the military works and the chain of command, and that line from Gene Hackman is, like, super important for his character, because that's what he believes, and that is, like, that's how the military works, and there's merit and value to that viewpoint. It's like, well, in a situation like this, when we're in a tin can and we don't see the sun for months and the stakes are the highest they could possibly be, nuclear war, you sort of have to remove the element of thinking too hard about things or questioning things. Like, there is merit to just being like, let's stick to the chain of command. You just do what the captain says and you don't question it. 100%.
For sure. I think what happened, that the problem with this movie, that I feel like if I saw this movie when it came out, I would be more aware of this because it would feel a little more close to home because I, would have been sentient for the Cold War and all that. But the problem is they're trying to present it as like a both sides thing. And I don't think it ends up coming off that way because they do this thing with Gene Hackman where you're right. He's not wrong at first. Like he runs a fire drill, right? Not a fire drill. He runs a drill right when there's a kitchen fire.
Yeah.
And Denzel is pissed. And he's like, why would you do that? And Gene Hackman points out where the real thing isn't going to happen when everything's hunky-dory. And he's not wrong. And a guy dies of a heart attack during it. But it's like Denzel kind of like, you can tell he kind of thinks it's Gene Hackman's fault.
Yeah.
And it's like, it isn't really. Like, and they try to make it like, oh, it's not so black and white. But then when it comes to the nuke stuff, it's very black and white.
It's pretty like, black and white. Like,
yeah.
In order for Gene Hackman to maintain his position of, no, we're meant to follow orders and we're not meant to question them, he has to be willfully stupid. Like, he has to be willfully obtuse. Because
he has to like want to nuke them. And he has to be like war hungry.
I think part of him is supposed to be, because he's the old generation of there always being an enemy to fight and we have to crush the enemy. And Denzel points out that's not the world we live in anymore. That's not, you can't completely eradicate an enemy because like we said, he has that line where he says the enemy now is war because everybody has nukes. So you can't, it's impossible to eradicate the enemy because if you do, they'll just shoot nukes and the whole planet's dead. There's
an implication, and they don't really go into it, but he's also divorced and he has his little dog on the boat. So basically, Gene Hackman, his whole life is there, safe.
Yeah.
Whereas everybody else, it's like, we have families and shit. They're just going to get nuked.
100%.
So there's this element of like, he has nothing to lose. So like there's this implied darkness around him where it's not just that he wants to eradicate the enemy. He just doesn't care.
Yeah, this is all
like,
he, this all he knows. That's all he knows. That's all he's got.
Yeah, he says it where he's like, back in my day, they just told you to push a button and you didn't question it. And so like that's very much his weird mentality throughout.
Yeah, and they have a couple of conversations about like training horses and he's like, yeah, you stick a cattle prod up its ass, you teach a horse to play cards. And like, that's a fucked up thing to say. But anyway.
This movie, well, hold on. We're not we're not skipping by the horse talk.
We're
Tom.
definitely, we can't breeze by the horse talk too quickly. That's fair.
Yeah, his first question to Denzel, they sit down and he goes, "What's the best horse you ever rode?" I think he asked him like if what he's into
What his
first,
hobbies
and
are,
Denzel,
and he gets to, do you ride motorcycles? And Denzel says, "No, I ride horses," and that's how they start talking about horses.
These two dudes just happen to have one thing in common, which is they know horses, which I've never run into that in my life, and I'm just so happy about that. And the movie is bookended by horse talk, and I love that about it. I love that.
It's to remind us that they do have common ground, even though they disagree.
Right,
on some fundamental issues.
On some fundamental issues. That's kind of the problem, is like there's a part at the end where they have to wait like 3 minutes and he starts up the horse talk. And like I'd be pissed if I was one of these crew members. It's just like, are you guys fucking playing games right now? Like, this is about nukes. Like, I don't know. Like,
a lot of people should be going to jail at the end of this movie.
Yes, and also I would argue that like of all the people who should be pointing a gun to someone's head and saying like, if you don't do this, I'm going to kill this person, it should be Denzel. Denzel, it's a matter of all life on the planet, and so it's like it's wild how Denzel kind of by the end is just like saluting him and like, thank you, sir, and it's just like, I don't know, man, this guy almost killed everything. He should, he's war crimes. He's war crimes.
Yeah, he should be in prison. James Gandolfini should probably be in prison. Everybody who helped him in his mutiny.
James Gandolfini, he's so Gandolfini in this.
He is just Tony Soprano on a submarine in this movie, which is dangerous. That's like having a horse on a submarine.
Yeah. It's as scary as it sounds. Yeah.
It's like having an angry bear on a submarine.
Right.
Yeah. I don't even know why I'm trying to do analogies. It's like having Tony Soprano on a submarine.
Yeah. It's like having James Gandolfini. Picture James Gandolfini on a submarine.
In a position of authority.
Yeah.
What the issue that comes up is they get an order saying that Daniel von Bargen has started fueling his missiles, basically. So they will be able to launch in 60 minutes if he decides to launch. So they're told to get ready to fire. But then they get attacked by another submarine that's also controlled by the Russian rebels. There's some cat and mouse stuff. Their submarine gets damaged a little bit. Their radio doesn't quite work. During the attack, they get another transmission from command telling them very clearly something about the nuclear launch. It like they get the first couple of words, nuclear missile launch is, and then it cuts off.
Yeah, which is a terrible message to get.
Horrible message. So I'm also pretty sure that's not how it would decode. But anyway, so Denzel brings Gene Hackman this partial message, and he's like, look, we need to verify this. It's very clearly about the nukes. And Gene Hackman's like, nope, that's a message fragment. It's meaningless. It's jumbled. It's nonsense. It doesn't mean anything. We have to stick to our original order. It's like, well, clearly it's talking about the nukes.
Yeah.
Like,
also,
we
clearly
should verify this.
Yeah, clearly they sent a new order.
Yeah.
So it's like, they wouldn't, the rules, I'm sure, doesn't state if you get half a message, ignore it. And then, it's like you clearly got a new order.
I'm sure there's protocol for that. Denzel also points out that, look, we're not the only sub out here. If they're radioing us and they're not getting a confirmation, they are absolutely talking to these other submarines. So, it is not all on us. We're not the only people out here who can respond and take out this threat if we do actually have to launch nukes. And Gene Hackman is ignoring all of that to stick to his nope, got to follow this chain of command. And so that's where it falls apart. That's where the movie kind of falls apart a little bit, because Gene Hackman has to be willfully obtuse about this. Like, he has to be ignoring what the message clearly says.
It falls apart morally. Obviously, as a thriller, it's glorious from beginning to end.
Right, yeah,
Don't get me wrong.
Right, because you could just cast him as like a Colonel Kurtz, but that's not what they're doing. They're trying to make it seem like it's they're trying to
both
make
sides.
It seem like it's a both sides thing, and that Gene Hackman's clearly in the wrong, but he's not doing it maliciously. It's because he really believes this, and it's like, well, that doesn't work if we are seeing that he's ignoring information in order to maintain his position.
Yeah.
That's a thing a villain does.
The problem is that it's doing the thing that us as a people right now are very sick of, which is trying to act like, well, civility is important and seeing things from both sides is important. But the problem is, much like some issues today, one of the sides is acting irrationally and violently. And it's like, you just can't do it that way. It's just, and it's wild to see this exact same situation. And like the problem comes down to the character Denzel at the end. Like the character Denzel at the end should just be like, hey, fuck you. Like that would work, because then that's an observation about the military and chain of command and how even in the face of this man who is, pretty much Kurtz, they're like, well, you're both wrong and you're both right. Like that would be a good comment on the military. You know what I mean? If Denzel like at the end quit or something like that, and he was like, this is fucked up.
Right.
But even Denzel, our hero, is like, yep.
He's like, haha. He like smiles and salutes Gene Hackman. That's the last thing he does is salute him.
As Gene Hackman walks into the sunset, and it's like, what the fuck?
There goes a hero. He's
also
just an old dog that has to be put out to pasture now because he's done his time.
Also, I would argue that something we didn't know at the time, so I can't blame us. Very naive sense of how Gene Hackman would act in the face of being proven wrong, because at the end they finally get the message, and he's just like, well, you were right, I was wrong, I'll be in my quarters. And like he's just like, I'm a fair man. And it's like, we kind of know that people like this aren't that. Like they actually in the face of reality will double down. So like honestly, he would be like, no, it's a Russian message. Like he would find any reason. That's what we've learned now, is that like it's that Sorkin-esque optimism of like, once they see the error of their ways, they'll certainly tip their hats.
There's a lot of Sorkin in this. Like in the beginning, the incident gets kicked off because Daniel von Bargen's villainous Russian general character goes on television and announces that he's going to shoot nukes if anybody fucks with them. And it's like, they treat it like a huge deal, because of course it is. And it's like, that's the whole reason they get sent on this mission in the first place. Flash forward to 20 years later, when Donald Trump, the American president, is just casually talking about nukes like every fucking day on the news.
Yeah, exactly. He's talking about nuking hurricanes.
Yeah, talking about nuking hurricanes.
And we're all like, sure, man.
Talking about
great.
fire and fury and shit. And it's like, it's like quaint in some instances. But yeah.
It's part of so for the record, it's part of why I love these things. This, Jack Ryan, A Few Good Men, which is Sorkin all the way. I love this shit. I eat it up. And part of the reason I do is because I find it hilariously naive. It's fantasy. It's this fantasy version of America where the American president is another one that's also Sorkin, where it's like where the president stands for something. Like the scene in American President where he bombs something overseas and he like mourns the janitor who he's bombing. And it's like, that's something the president does. Like it's such a delightfully naive view of our military and our government that like it's almost like escapism, where it's like, ooh, what if it was like this?
What if it was like this? Yeah.
It was never like this. There was no time in American history where anything was like this. So it like does this thing where it's both like observes that we have too much power, that nukes are bad, that one man on a submarine could start a nuclear holocaust, and at the same time it still manages to be hilariously naive, and it's delightful.
Yeah, the way it ends with Gene Hackman retiring early and, recommending Denzel for command, to be like, oh, no hard feelings, I'm a magnanimous dude, I was wrong and I accept that I was wrong. Like all of that isn't necessarily false. Like I feel like if this incident did happen, they would probably let their, 25-year Navy captain veteran with all these friends in high places, he would probably get to retire early.
Oh, absolutely.
But like
it's really Denzel. Again, it's Denzel's reaction.
Right.
That's so naive.
So the movie ends with Denzel pleased with this decision. So it's telling us that it's a good thing that Gene Hackman got to retire early. When in order for this movie, like that's the most naive thing it does. I think in treating that like it's like a good outcome, and it's like no. Everyone, Gene Hackman, Gandolfini, his two other little goons that helped him do his mutiny. They all need to be in fucking prison. Dishonorable discharge in prison. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It's two ways of observing movies like this. It's how naive they are, but also there's no denying the fact that this movie, much like a courtroom drama, is edge of your seat. I am edge of my seat watching this shit, right?
Hell yeah.
And all it is a bunch of actors standing, staring at screens. That's it. There's no action. Well, there is a little action. There's some gun stuff, but it's just people looking at screens, screaming at each other, and like life or death. I fucking love it. I love that shit.
Yeah, it's just very tense characters yelling at each other a few inches from each other's faces. That's most of the film.
Yeah, exactly. It's oh man, it's it's kind of beautiful. It's like a stage play. Like you could make this as a stage play.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not, I don't know too much more what to talk about this film. It's
it's part of that genre.
It's a good example of that genre too. I think this is an effective film. I really do. I think it works as a thriller.
Course. It's just morally naive, It's like all of its kind. It was a part made for Denzel. Like Denzel versus Gene Hackman is perfect.
Yeah, and they have really good scenes together because of course they do. Of course they would.
Yeah, they're both amazing actors. It's
They have
Fabrizio
in there. Oh man, he fares a lot better in this than he does in Titanic or The Rock.
Yeah, for sure. The weird comic books talk. Denzel is into comic books and horses
and Star Trek.
And Star Trek. Yeah, he's like a weird horse nerd in this.
Yeah,
it's.
Well, the idea is he's an academic. Even though he's Denzel, and
yeah, it's definitely one of those situations where Denzel isn't really playing it as an academic, and I don't care.
Well, he's playing it as Denzel.
I don't give a shit.
And I didn't mean to suggest that Denzel doesn't come off as an academic. It's that Denzel comes off as a badass, and that's not really what they want you to think of the character. At least it doesn't seem like that's the way it was written, but it still works the way Denzel plays him.
Yeah. Okay. So this is again. I bet I'd be a lot less forgiving of this movie when it came out, because that it does. There should be he should actually start as an academic. Like he should be a nerd. He should be kind of a coward.
That's what
that would have been.
Yeah, that's more what I was getting at. That would have been a character arc. Yeah, for sure. It should be. It seems like the character was initially conceived to be played by somebody like. Shit. Now I can't pull a name.
Some kind of nerd. Some kind of fucking nerd.
Yeah, some kind of nerd. Shit. Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Why can't I think of any nerdy lead actors right now?
I don't know, man. I mean, it could, honestly, Denzel could do it. He just have to change.
He has to change the way he's performed. It seems like, okay, all right. I got it. It seems like a character that would be played by Tom Hanks.
Yes. That's perfect.
Because Denzel comes off, he usually portrays a lot more authority, and he's always Denzel to a degree, so he's always a little bit badass.
Right. That's the thing. He's just Denzel through and through. So at no point, I mean, I'm still edge of my seat, but the moment Gene Hackman's bullying him, I'm just like, watch it, Gene Hackman. He's going to punch you.
Yeah.
He's Denzel. He's going to slap you. Yeah.
It's a great scene, and it was in the trailers. I remember them vividly. But when Gene Hackman gets out of the brig and recruits his little mutiny guys and goes back to the bridge to take the launch key from Denzel, and he starts punching him in the face, and Denzel just puts the key around his neck and won't give it to him. That's great scene. But also, yes, and as it starts, when Gene Hackman walks up there and first punches Denzel in the face, I was like, I wouldn't have done that, Gene Hackman.
Yeah, what the fuck are you doing, man? It's Denzel. You don't know much about this guy, but you know he's Denzel.
He's 20 years younger than you, and he's Denzel Washington.
Right. Like he can beat the crap out of you at any moment. Like
Beats you up with a glance.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know what was going to happen when those 3 minutes are up. I guess that's the point. But like, I think it would involve Denzel kicking the crap out of Gene Hackman.
Yeah, it would have been. So it's like, okay, your 3 minutes are up. He's like, okay, you can try to take the key off my neck.
Yep. Gene Hackman has that old man scariness.
Oh yeah.
That is definitely. It's definitely, it's there. But
don't get me wrong. I under most circumstances, Gene Hackman would not be a person I would want to run afoul of.
Right. I wouldn't want to get in a fight with Gene Hackman, but he's got that old man energy where it feels like he'd bite you.
Oh hell yeah.
Like if I had to pick
eye gouging.
Yeah, like if I had to pick who to fight,
he's probably got a bottle opener in his pocket that he'll start gouging you with.
Right. Since Gene Hackman's older, this is weird. I'm gonna say this. And it's strategic. If I had to choose between fighting Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman, I would fight Denzel Washington, not because I think I'd win, but because I think I'd lose better. Like in the sense that Denzel, once I'm crying and pathetic, would walk away.
Yeah,
whereas Gene Hackman,
you got a clearer sense of the rules of engagement with Denzel Washington. Yeah, like Denzel will stop beating the shit out of you once you are defeated.
Yeah, Gene Hackman would like go immediately for an artery. He'd like smash a bottle, he'd bite, he'd slit open arteries.
Yeah,
he'd like
stepping on your neck.
He because he's got that old man anger, he's going to try to keep you down for good. And he wants your precious life because he's old. Denzel has nothing to prove. And so yes, Denzel could beat me to death easily. Even old Denzel, I feel like
especially old Denzel.
Yeah, but I think he'd unlike Gene Hackman, when I'm blubbering and I'm like the snot's coming out, and I'm like, please, Denzel, please. He would walk away. He'd be disgusted with my display. Mm-hmm. Whereas Gene Hackman would just finish me off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Mortal Kombat. You just tear your head and spine out.
Yeah, exactly. So these two going at it in their primes. Which I do believe it's both of their primes.
Yeah, this era Gene Hackman's
older.
Yeah, this late 80s, early to mid 90s Gene Hackman. I do agree. It's like prime Gene Hackman.
Right.
And at the height of his powers.
It's so funny that Viggo's there. I do want to talk about Viggo's character because he's also a character where if I was Denzel, I'd be like, we're not friends anymore. And they probably won't be.
He would go to prison too. If I was Denzel.
Yeah. Because they do this weird thing where Viggo actually helps with the mutiny and then changes his mind and tries to refuse. And then Gene Hackman puts a gun to his friend's fucking head and is like, open the safe with the codes or whatever. I don't know.
First to Viggo's head.
Yeah. And Viggo's like, yeah, what are you going to do about it? If you kill me, nobody gets in the safe. And then he has to put it to someone else's head and Viggo has to be like, okay, fine. But his family's on the line here.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's a great scene. It's really fucked up and intense. But it's Viggo's still he fucked up. And then at the end, Denzel makes an appeal to him because he has to. But after that, I wouldn't. Yeah,
no, our kids are not hanging out anymore after this, Viggo. No, I'm sorry.
Are. Yeah, that's awkward. That's real awkward. They're gonna get home and it's gonna be it's going to be real awkward.
Yeah.
Again, that's why I think it was very important to have the beginning.
Yeah.
And have him saying goodbye to his family and all that to really hammer in what's at stake with all of this.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really good. Yeah.
No, I was just questioning you beginning your plot summary with Denzel and Viggo are friends.
Well, it's important.
It is. I'm not disagreeing that it's important. Okay. I'm not disagreeing that it's important.
Yeah, I guess what's surprising to me is it's less important than I thought it was going to be. Also, Tony Soprano and his movie trivia hazing, that was weird.
Yeah,
that never shows back up.
Well, it's to set up his character as being a dickhead.
Yes. Oh yeah. No. I figured it out. It's just funny.
Just a dickhead.
Such a weird.
Yeah.
He's that guy, and I think he should leave doing the jazz musician stuff.
Yeah,
where he's like, you don't know these old actors, and it's like, shut up, James Gandolfini.
Exactly. Yeah, it's It's a meaningless test. He's just doing
He's
it.
he's a perfect dickhead.
Yeah, it's to show, because he asks one of the sailors about, it's an old ass movie, I forget even which one, and the guy's like, and he's asking about like one of the supporting actors in it, and the sailor's like, fucking what? And he's like, drop down and give me 20. So it's just to show that James Gandolfini is a dickhead who enjoys being in command for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And boy, is he doing maniac eyes later.
Oh yeah, he is. It's just Tony Soprano on a submarine.
Yeah. Well, okay, it isn't. It isn't, because I think Tony Soprano would worry about his own preservation. James Gandolfini in this is like, I hope we all die.
That's true.
Like,
Yeah,
that's the energy. He's like, nuke America, nuke Russia, nuke this sub, everything, nuke God.
You're right.
Like he is. Yeah, he is like in it for the pure. He's the Joker. It's so weird.
You're right. Tony Soprano would be like, "Well, we're gonna launch these fucking nukes. We're really gonna shoot these nukes. Should we call somebody? Yeah, like Tony Soprano would end up on the side of Denzel. He'd be like, we should fucking call somebody before we shoot these nukes.
Yeah, no. James Gandolfini at the end, when everybody cheers when they find out the nukes are called off, James Gandolfini is the only person who doesn't. Even the people who mutinied are like, "Oh, thank God!
Yeah, thank God,
like,
we're not actually shooting nukes." Yeah,
yeah. And so that's what's so funny about it, is that like Tony Soprano is the only one who genuinely wanted to blow up the entire world. And Gene Hackman, I guess.
I guess so.
Yeah, it's what a character.
Also, speaking
and
of,
again,
go ahead.
They never say what happens to him, and it's like, I really want to know what happens to him. That's very important.
I feel like most of the officers on this submarine are going to prison.
I hope so. And then it's that weird thing that Denzel should be mad about. They're all going to prison except for the guy who incited it all.
Mm-hmm, except for the captain.
That seems familiar.
who should go to super prison.
Yeah, he should go to Gene Hackman prison.
Yeah, send him
Lex Luthor prison.
Yeah, yep. Send him to Leavenworth, where they're keeping the Joker.
Yeah, put him on the raft.
Yeah, hell yeah. What I was going to say is, speaking of Tom Hanks earlier, the admiral or whoever that decides the case at the end and tells them, so you're both right and you're both wrong, is fucking Jason Robards from Philadelphia. So it's like, I don't feel like I should listen to you.
That's weird.
I feel like you shouldn't be the one to adjudicate this. You're the guy who fired Tom Hanks for being gay.
Yeah, that's fucked up, man.
Mm-hmm.
Not cool, dude.
It's not cool. Clearly, you don't know about fairness. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. No, does Denzel have like a stable of like actors? Because James Gandolfini is in Fallen as well, and like, I don't know, I don't know what that means. I just like that James Gandolfini and Denzel have spent some time together.
Yeah, no, I don't know, Dave. I think it's just actors getting roles.
I know, but I guess it's the era as well. But it's like,
yeah,
it doesn't matter. I want to watch Fallen.
James Gandolfini was in a lot of movies around this time, so
that's true, and I always forget that about him.
Yeah,
because obviously Sopranos like took over his career.
Yeah, that's all he did after that.
Yeah, if it weren't for Sopranos, he'd basically just have a solid career of playing character.
He was a character actors.
Yeah, he'd just be background dudes like in all these movies. So, I mean, good for him.
Yeah.
I guess that's it. That's all I have to say.
That's Crimson Tide for you.
That's Crimson Tide. Bunch of pissy little army men trying to nuke the world.
They're in the Navy, Dave. They're in the Navy.
It doesn't matter, Tom.
It kind of does.
I'm not going to remember. Listen.
Navy is boats,
has nothing
Dave.
to do
Navy is boats.
Okay. But it's not a boat. It's a submarine. A
submarine is a type of boat.
It's like a base boat. It's like a base/boat. It's like a houseboat.
It is a flavor of boat.
Yeah. It doesn't feel boaty to me.
I agree it doesn't feel boaty, but if you think about it, it is a boat.
Like it's the bottom half of a boat twice, you know?
Yeah.
Like a boat sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man.
Listen, I don't know much about boats, but I feel like this is two bottom halves of a boat.
I believe you. It just doesn't feel like sailing to me. Nothing about a submarine feels like sailing.
That's good because it doesn't sail anywhere.
Yeah.
It's driven by propulsion, Dave.
It's, you know what I mean.
I know what
boating.
you mean.
It doesn't feel like boating. Would you go in a submarine?
I don't know. I feel like I might be too tall. Like, those bulkhead doors are not very tall.
Yeah.
So I would be braining myself in every corridor that I walked through.
I think I would go in a submarine. I just don't want to deal with the water.
Maybe you shouldn't get on a submarine.
Yeah. That's the problem. Is I like the environment, but what's outside is the problem. Like, I'd much rather do a spaceship, I think.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Nope.
Submarines, boats. Okay. Hey, folks. Thanks for listening. Thank you to Vincent.
Thank you so much.
Good pick from Vincent. Very smart pick.
Strong pick. Yeah.
Yep, 90s thrillers, man. That's where it's at.
Keep them coming.
Yep. Keep feeding us these 90s thrillers. And we'll keep shitting out podcasts. Speaking of, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. You can go on there for $5 a month. You get exclusive access to a bunch of podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder's a Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and Spiel Boys. For $10 a month, you can watch movies with us every Friday night. As of recording this, last Friday we watched two of the Star Wars prequels. So that's fun,
you got
right?
that sort of excitement. Yeah, we don't. Sometimes we watch other
90s thrillers.
Sometimes we watch 90s thrillers. Yeah,
this is a movie we would watch.
We should have
Crimson
watched
Tide.
Crimson Tide by now. It's weird that we haven't.
Well, we will.
Yeah, we'll get this. We'll get the Pelican Brief. We'll make it a 90s Denzel night.
Ooh, yep. Or we could do submarines.
Yeah, submarines. You do U-571.
Yep.
Man.
K-19.
K-19. Yep. Both of those films, I believe, at least K-19 definitely does feature a guy people getting locked in areas of the submarine running.
You got to make some widows.
It's Peter Sarsgaard in K-19.
Is K-19 called, like, I assume it's not like it's official, the Widowmaker. That would be amazing. To have a submarine called the Widowmaker.
I don't know.
Sorry.
I think it's maybe the missile that it has.
Okay.
Anyway, we also have a store. Head over to GameFullyUnemployed.com. Where you can find a link to our Teespring store where we have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs you can get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, and a bunch of other things. So check that out.
Check it out. Imagine, so really, like, there's a weapon called the Widow. That's like making a fucking weapon called the Orphan Factory. Mm-hmm. That's bleak.
It's pretty
That's
sweet.
Real bleak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Orphan Gobbler. Yeah.
Orphan Gobbler.
Weird, they don't have a bomb that's called
makes
that.
Orphan. Yeah. It's the it's the orphan churner.
It creates orphans, Dave, and then it destroys them.
Right.
It does both.
Yeah.
It's very efficient.
It's very efficient stuff. Delicious orphans.
Mm-hmm.